The world of law enforcement corruption. In this gripping video, we'll reveal the horrible stories of the top 10 corrupt police officers who thought they could get away with anything. From misusing their position to engaging in illegal activity, these policemen crossed the line only to suffer the greatest punishment imaginable: life in prison. Join us as we explore their heinous crimes and the investigations that brought them down. Michael Dotrow. Michael Dotrow was a police officer who swore to follow the law but did everything he could to break it. After his 11th complaint about excessive force, Dotrow was angry with his captain, Mark Anderko, and planned to set fire to Anderko's house while his family was sleeping inside. He also cyberbullied a police officer, slashed her tires, and hacked into the department's computer database to get information about the incident. Dotrow was found guilty and ordered to 20 years in prison for attempted murder, a first-degree crime, and 10 years in prison for aggravated arson for starting the fire at Anderko's house on May 23, 2013. He was also given 10 years in prison for official misconduct, 5 years in prison for plotting to tamper with a witness, and 18 months in prison for conspiracy to retaliate. Daniel Holtzclaw. The sentencing of former Oklahoma City police officer Daniel Holtzclaw to 263 years in prison on several charges of rape and sexual assault has sent shockwaves throughout the law enforcement community. This case has shown that some police officers are dishonest and that police units need more accountability and oversight. Holtzclaw's case was especially bad because he preyed on weak women in his town, most of whom were African American. He used his position of power to scare and control his victims, and people are right to be angry and disgusted by what he did. Given how sensitive the case was and how little Daniel Holtzclaw said about his victims, his reaction to being sentenced was very uncomfortable. Many people think Holtzclaw didn't feel bad about what he did. Instead, they think he's just sad that he lost his freedom. Kenneth Blues. As a former police officer, Kenneth Blues did everything that shocked the community and law enforcement leaders. Blue committed a particularly horrific act when he murdered Jennifer Webb, a 32-year-old pregnant woman. According to rumors, Blue was the father of Webb's pregnant child but preferred to keep the relationship private. The prosecution presented a slew of evidence against Blue throughout the trial, including DNA evidence proving he was the father of Webb's unborn child. Blue's defense attempted to establish that he was not mentally competent at the time of the murder, but the jury rejected this claim and convicted him guilty of first-degree murder. Blue was sentenced to life in jail without the chance of parole. The incident also triggered a review of police procedures and standards, as well as a heightened public awareness of domestic violence and the dangers of police officers who abuse their position of power. Zachary Wester. Former Deputy Zachary Wester's acts in Jackson County, Florida, sent shockwaves through the community. Wester, who was in charge of keeping the peace, abused his authority by drugging innocent people during random traffic stops. His misconduct included stopping cars, placing drugs in the vehicles, and then presenting false evidence to arrest them. The fact that Wester's actions were captured on his own body camera increased the seriousness of his accusations. The video exposed his dishonest methods and provided convincing evidence of his wrongdoing. After a trial, Wester was found guilty of racketeering, manipulating evidence, false detention, and possession of illegal substances. Dennis Perkins. Dennis Perkins was a former Louisiana police officer convicted of sexual offenses against children in 2017. The abuse was discovered in 2017 after a victim informed a school counselor who subsequently reported it to law enforcement. Perkins was arrested and charged with 60 counts of child sexual assault, and the prosecution produced evidence such as text messages and images to back up the victims' claims. Perkins claimed that the claims were a part of a conspiracy against him and that the victims had been coerced into lying, but the judge sentenced him to 100 years in jail with no chance of parole. Cynthia Perkins, his wife, was also arrested and charged with obstructing justice, suspected of bribing one of the victims to recant their evidence and attempting to intimidate her. Cynthia Perkins pled guilty to the charges, and the judge sentenced her to 41 years in jail as part of the plea deal. Wayne Jenkins. In 2003, Wayne Jenkins joined the Baltimore Police Department. At first, he was a squad cop who walked the streets of the city. In 2007, he joined the Gun Trace Task Force, a group of cops who didn't wear uniforms and went after people they thought were criminals with lots of guns and drugs. but the focus on a number instead of quality led Jenkins and 7 other agents to plant evidence, steal money from their homes and raided, and even sell the drugs that they got back to the street. Jenkins signed a plea deal in 2017 that said that he and the other members of the unit were involved in 7 robberies and that he sold drugs with Donald Stepp, a former bail bondsman and cocaine dealer who testified at Jenkins's hearing. Jenkins pleaded guilty on January 5, 2018 to 1 count of racketeering, 2 counts of robbery, 1 count of destroying, changing, or making up data for the federal probe, and 4 counts of deprivation of rights under color of law. David Carrick. David Carrick briefly served in the British Army before joining the Metropolitan Police in 2001. In 2009, he joined the Parliamentary Diplomatic Protection Team. Domestic abuse charges were filed against him in 2002. Despite receiving numerous complaints regarding his activities, Carrick was recertified as an armed police officer in 2017. Between 2003 and 2020, Carrick met a number of women on dating apps such as Badoo and Tinder, whom he later abused and sexually assaulted. Another lady said that Carrick sexually abused her in October 2021, a year ago. Carrick's police duties were halted once he was arrested. He confessed to 49 offences, including 24 charges of sexual assault on 12 female victims. The Metropolitan Police Department investigated about 1,000 of his 45,000 employees. Wayne Couzens. Wayne Couzens was a retired Metropolitan Police officer who spent over a decade on the force. In March 2021, he was convicted of Sarah Everard's kidnapping, sexual assault and murder. The case prompted significant indignation and protests in the UK, drawing attention to the issue of violence against women. Couzens was sentenced to life in jail, which means he will never be released. The story aroused serious concerns about violence against women in the UK and spurred a debate about how police treat women. The UK government announced various steps to combat violence against women, including the establishment of a new police watchdog to investigate accusations of police misconduct and the appointment of a new victims commissioner to assist crime victims. In addition, the case prompted the introduction of the police, crime, sentencing, and court bill. Braulio Gonzalez, a former Miami-Dade police officer who was found guilty of sexually abusing girls, was given a life term in prison. At his sentencing, 2 of his victims testified about what he did to them. One of the victims informed the psychotherapist that he molested her many times between the ages of 8 and 10. She also told an interviewer with the Florida Department of Children and Families that he had pointed a gun at her and threatened to kill a family member if she told. His lawyer, Bruce Lair, had requested a 25-year sentence, claiming that Gonzalez was a dedicated officer who had saved numerous lives on the job. Gonzalez, according to a publication, did not address the court or apologize to the victims. Michael Valver. Former New York City police officer Michael Valver was found guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of his 8-year-old son, Thomas Valver, and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. On January 17, 2020, Valver contacted 911 to report that his son, Thomas, had fallen and was not breathing in their home. An autopsy found that Thomas died as a result of hypothermia. Further inquiry revealed that Valver and his fiancée, Angela Paulina, had subjected Thomas to horrible mistreatment. Both have been charged with second-degree murder. Jurors heard audio recordings during the trial in which Valver and Paulina humiliated and ridiculed Thomas as he drew his last breaths. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, keep watching